What if the man who shattered your world 8 years ago suddenly reappeared, his life hanging by a thread, and you were the only one who could save him? Would you choose duty over the deep, burning desire for a justice that never came? We need more blood. Stat! Dr. Olivia Hayes shouted, her voice cutting through the controlled chaos of the ER, as she pressed down hard on the gaping wound. The bloodied body of the man on the gurney was a stark contrast to the sterile white sheets beneath him, his life ebbing away with each passing second. The medical team worked at lightning speed, a symphony of urgent efficiency. Olivia lifted her gaze for a fleeting instant, and time seemed to stop. That face, despite the gruesome cuts and swelling, she would recognize it anywhere. Dr. Hayes, are you all right? A nurse's concerned voice pulled her back from the precipice of memory. Yes, she responded, her voice surprisingly steady, though her hands trembled, betraying the storm raging within her. Continue the transfusion. Michael Bell, the very man who had abandoned her 8 years ago when she told him she was pregnant, the man who never answered her desperate calls, the man who now, impossibly, depended on her and her alone to stay alive. For agonizing hours later, Olivia stepped out of the operating room, peeling off her blood-stained gloves and tossing them into the biohazard container. She took a deep, shaky breath and leaned heavily against the cool wall. Her legs threatened to give way beneath her, but her face remained an impassive mask. Years of practice of meticulously hiding her own pain. Doctor, the patient is stable. We're transferring him to intensive care. A resident informed her, his voice tired but respectful. Thank you. I'll handle his file personally. Arriving home, the clock on her nightstand read 3 in the morning. The small apartment was silent, peaceful. Olivia went straight to Sophie's room, as she did every night, to watch her sleep. Her 8-year-old daughter, a perfect, innocent reflection of Michael, hugged a worn teddy bear, her small face serene in the soft glow of the night light. Rough shift. Mrs. Davis, Olivia's mother, asked softly from her bedroom doorway. You have no idea, Mom, Olivia replied, massaging the tension from her neck, the weight of the day settling heavily on her shoulders. You should be sleeping. At my age, sleep comes and goes. Want some tea? In the small kitchen, as the water boiled, Olivia finally allowed a choked sob to escape. I operated on him today, Mom. On Michael. The teacup Mrs. Davis was holding trembled in her hand. What? He's in Chicago? How? A car accident. He arrived at the ER, completely mangled. Olivia wiped away a rebellious tear, her composure cracking. He didn't even recognize me. And what are you going to do? Her mother asked, her voice filled with a quiet concern. My job. Save him. And make damn sure he never knows Sophie is his daughter. Mrs. Davis took her daughter's trembling hands in hers. Olivia, it's been 8 years. Maybe. No, Mom. Olivia's voice was firm, resolute. He has no right to just show up now and destroy what we've built. Sophie is fine without him. But the girl asks about her father more and more, and I've answered what we agreed, that he's far away and can't be with us. The silence filled the kitchen until Sophie appeared in the doorway, rubbing her sleepy eyes. Mommy, you're home, she cried, running to hug her. Olivia held her tight, desperately trying to hide the tears that threatened to escape, to shield her daughter from the storm raging within her. Yes, my love. I'm here now. I had a dream about Daddy, Sophie said suddenly, her innocent words a sharp pang in Olivia's heart. Olivia exchanged an alarmed glance with her mother. Oh, really? And what did you dream? That he came to visit us and brought me a present. Will he ever come see us, Mommy? Olivia swallowed hard, the lie catching in her throat. It's time to go back to bed, sweetie. You have school tomorrow. What would you do if faced with saving the life of someone who deeply hurt you? Would compassion win? Or would the scars of the past be too deep to ignore? Share your thoughts below. What if the eyes of the man you tried to forget slowly opened, forcing you to confront a past you thought buried, and threatening to unravel the fragile piece you've painstakingly built for your child? The next day, Dr. Olivia Hayes reviewed Michael Bell's vital signs. The monitor showed a steady improvement. She observed his face, now less swollen, the sharp lines of his features more defined. The years hadn't been entirely unkind. The laugh lines around his eyes, the subtle silver at his temples. She wondered what he had done all this time, who he had been with. When will he wake up? A voice asked from the doorway. Olivia turned, surprised. An elegant woman, impeccably dressed, observed her with a cool, appraising gaze. "Are you family?" Olivia inquired, maintaining her professional composure. "I'm Eleanor Vance, his assistant. The company sent me to check on his condition." "Mr. Bell suffered severe trauma," Olivia explained. "It's likely he'll regain consciousness within the next 24 hours, but he'll need significant time to recover fully." "I understand. I'll leave my contact information at the reception." When the woman left, Olivia pulled up Michael's file. Michael Bell, 36, businessman, no known allergies. No children. Those last two words sent a familiar pang through her heart. That night, as she finished her rounds, Olivia noticed activity in Michael's room. She approached and found him slowly opening his eyes, his gaze unfocused. "Where am I?" he murmured, his voice hoarse. Olivia adjusted his foredrip, her movements precise, her professional mask firmly in place. "You're in the hospital. You had an accident. I'm Dr. Hayes. I'm in charge of your case." Michael stared at her intently, as if trying to decipher a complex puzzle. "Do I know you?" he whispered, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. Olivia felt the air leave her lungs, but her expression remained impassive. "It's normal to experience confusion after a trauma like yours. Rest now, Mr. Bell." And without giving him time to respond, she quickly left the room, determined to keep her secret safe, even if it meant facing the ghost of the man who had broken her heart every single day. Michael tried to sit up, but a sharp pain shot through his side, forcing him back down. The hospital room spun around him. Fragments of the accident, blurry and chaotic, flashed in his memory. Blinding lights, the screech of tires, the sickening impact. But there was something else, something that unsettled him more than the crash itself. The doctor. There was something profoundly, disturbingly familiar about her. "Good morning, Mr. Bell," Olivia said, entering the room the next morning, her voice crisp, professional, distant. "How are you feeling today?" "Like I've been run over by a truck," he replied, his gaze fixed on her, studying her every feature. "We know each other, don't we?" Olivia checked his monitors, meticulously avoiding his eyes. "I've already explained that confusion is normal after a trauma of this nature." "I'm not confused," he insisted, his voice gaining strength. "Your face. I remember it." "I'll order some additional tests," she said, deliberately changing the subject. "Your recovery is progressing well, but we want to rule out any complications." Michael gently grabbed her arm as she passed by his bed. The unexpected contact sent an electric shock through Olivia's skin. "Please," he pleaded, his eyes searching hers. "If we know each other, just tell me." She pulled her arm away firmly. "Rest, Mr. Bell." That afternoon, in the hospital cafeteria, Olivia was distractedly stirring her coffee when Mrs. Davis, her mother, arrived with Sophie. "Mommy!" the little girl exclaimed, running to hug her. "My love, what are you doing here?" Olivia asked, kissing her forehead. "You forgot this at home," Mrs. Davis said, handing her a folder. "And Sophie insisted on seeing you." "I drew this for you," Sophie said, extending a colorful piece of paper. "It's our family, you, Grandma, and me. And I also drew Daddy, even though I don't know what he looks like." Olivia stared at the drawing. A male stick figure with a question mark for a face stood separate from the rest. "It's beautiful, my love." "Is he very far away?" Sophie asked with childlike innocence. Olivia exchanged a look with her mother. "Let's go to my office. We can talk better there." Once in her small, cluttered office, Sophie played with a stethoscope while Olivia and Mrs. Davis spoke in low tones. You can't keep hiding it from him, honey, her mother insisted. He's here in the same hospital just a few floors away. And what do you want me to do, Mom? Tell him? Hi, Michael. Remember me? The woman you abandoned when she was pregnant? Oh, and by the way, you have an 8-year-old daughter? He has a right to know. A right. Olivia clenched her fists. He lost that right when he disappeared from my life. And what about Sophie's rights? The question hung in the air, heavy and unanswered, when the door opened. Dr. Hayes, excuse me, a nurse interrupted. The patient in 304 is asking for you. Mr. Bell needs to wait his turn like everyone else. Olivia responded, irritated. It's just that he's quite agitated. He says he needs to speak with you urgently. Olivia sighed. Take Sophie home, Mom. This is going to be a long day. When she entered Michael's room, he was standing by the window, the hospital gown barely covering his back. What are you doing out of bed? She asked, her voice sharp with authority. You need to rest. Olivia, he said simply, turning to face her. Olivia Rodriguez. Now Hayes, according to your name tag. Olivia's heart raced, but she kept her expression neutral. Mr. Bell, please get back into bed. Why didn't you tell me who you were? That's not relevant to your treatment. Not relevant? Michael let out a bitter laugh. You disappeared 8 years ago, and now you show up as my doctor. Coincidence? The world is a small place. Now, if you don't get back into bed, I'll have to request another doctor for your case. Michael reluctantly obeyed. His eyes never stopped studying her, as if searching for pieces of a forgotten puzzle. You look good, he murmured. Different but good. We're not here to talk about me. Your X-rays show. I saw the photo on your ID badge, he interrupted, his voice suddenly intense. A little girl? Is she your daughter? Olivia froze for a second. My personal life is none of your concern. How old is she? He insisted. Mr. Bell, this is inappropriate. She's 8 years old, isn't she? Michael looked directly into her eyes, his own gaze piercing. Her eyes. They're just like mine. The silence that followed was deafening. Olivia could hear her own heart pounding in her ears. I'll finish the examination and send another doctor for your follow-up, she finally said, turning towards the door. She's my daughter, isn't she? Michael's voice trembled. That's why you disappeared. Olivia stopped, her hand on the doorknob, her back to him. You'll be discharged tomorrow. Have a good afternoon, Mr. Bell. As she walked down the hallway, the tears she had held back for so long began to fall. 8 years of secrets were threatening to crumble. In her pocket, Sophie's drawing felt as heavy as lead. What if the truth you desperately tried to conceal was finally forced into the light, and the past you ran from returned with a vengeance, threatening not just your fragile peace, but the very life of the child you sought to protect? You have no right, Dr. Olivia Hayes exclaimed, slamming the door of her consultation room shut with a force that made the diplomas on the wall rattle. Michael Bell had intercepted her as she was leaving the hospital, his presence an unwelcome intrusion. His eyes, though marked by the recent trauma, burned with a new, unsettling determination. No right, he countered, leaning heavily on her desk to maintain his balance. His recent discharge clearly premature. To know my own daughter? Your daughter. Olivia let out a dry, humorless laugh. She's your daughter now? 8 years ago, she was just a problem you decided to escape from. Michael lowered his gaze for a fleeting moment, a flicker of shame in his eyes. I never knew you went through with the pregnancy. And what did you expect? That I'd have an abortion just because you disappeared? Olivia crossed her arms, her body rigid with suppressed anger. I called you hundreds of times. Your number was disconnected. I went to your apartment. Empty. As if you had never existed. Things weren't like that, Michael tried to explain, taking a hesitant step closer, but Olivia recoiled as if burned. My father was dying. I had to go back to Boston in an emergency. And then everything with the company got complicated. And you couldn't make a single call? Send one message? Nothing in 8 years. Olivia's voice dripped with sarcasm and a deep, lingering pain. I tried to find you later, he insisted, his voice pleading. But you had changed your number, your address. No one knew where you were. Olivia shook her head, incredulous. Save your excuses, Michael. I'm not here to listen to them. I just want to meet her. His voice cracked, raw with a desperate longing. Please. Sophie is fine, Olivia stated, her voice firm. She has a stable, happy life. She doesn't need you to suddenly appear and confuse her. Sophie? He repeated, savoring the name, a bittersweet smile on his lips. Does she have my last name? No, Olivia replied curtly. She's Sophie Hayes Rodriguez. My daughter. The pain in Michael's eyes was evident, but Olivia remained steadfast. At least show me a photo, he pleaded, his voice barely a whisper. Olivia hesitated, then finally pulled out her phone and showed him a picture of Sophie smiling, a missing front tooth adding to her charm. Michael stared at the image in silence, gently tracing the outline of Sophie's face on the screen with his fingertip. She looks just like my sister when she was little, he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. The moment was shattered by the shrill beep of Michael's cell phone. As he glanced at the screen, his expression changed dramatically, a wave of alarm washing over his face. I have to go, he said, visibly shaken. But this conversation isn't over. For me, Olivia retorted, her voice cold. It ended 8 years ago. That night, Olivia arrived home to a throbbing headache. Sophie was in the living room diligently drawing. What are you doing, my love? Olivia asked, sitting beside her. I'm inventing what my daddy looks like. The little girl replied matter-of-factly. I gave him a beard because my friends' daddies have beards. Olivia felt a familiar knot tighten in her throat. Sophie, would you like to meet your daddy? The little girl looked up, surprised. Can he come visit us? Not exactly, but... Olivia searched for the right words, her mind racing. What if I told you he's closer than we thought? Before Sophie could respond, the doorbell rang. Mrs. Davis, Olivia's mother, opened the door. Sophie, go to your room for a moment, Olivia ordered, seeing who it was. Michael stood in the threshold, pale as a ghost, his expensive clothes disheveled, a stark contrast to his usual impeccable appearance. How did you get my address? Olivia demanded in a low voice, stepping out into the hallway. Dr. Miller is a friend of mine, he replied, his voice strained. Olivia, I just received the worst news of my life, and I needed to see you. What are you talking about? My business partner, Ernesto Vance, has been embezzling funds from the company for years. In my name, the DA is investigating, and they've frozen all my accounts. Michael ran a trembling hand through his hair. I've lost everything, Olivia. Everything. Olivia stared at him, searching for any sign of manipulation, but she only saw genuine, raw despair. I'm sorry, she said, her voice softening despite herself. But that's not my problem. I didn't come to ask you for money, Michael responded, a flicker of his old pride returning. I came because... His voice broke. Because I have no one else. At that moment, the apartment door opened again, and Sophie peeked her head out. Mommy! Michael stood motionless, staring at the little girl in stunned silence. Sophie, curious, stepped out into the hallway. Hello, she said shyly. Hello, Michael replied, his voice barely a breath. Sophie, please go back inside, Olivia requested, her voice strained. Who is he? The little girl asked, ignoring her mother's order. Just a patient from the hospital, Olivia stammered. Sophie observed Michael with an intense curiosity, as if trying to solve a complex puzzle. Then, surprising both adults, she extended her small hand. I'm Sophie. Want to see my drawings? Michael looked at Olivia, silently asking for permission. She subtly shook her head. Maybe another time, Sophie, he said, his voice gentle. Your mom and I have to talk about grown-up things. The little girl pouted with disappointment before returning to the apartment. She's perfect, Michael murmured when the door closed. Don't use my daughter as a distraction from your problems, Olivia warned, her voice sharp. If you really want to be part of her life, prove it with actions, not just words. What do you want me to do? Nothing. I don't want anything from you. Michael straightened, a flicker of his old composure returning. I do want something. I want to know my daughter. And I will, Olivia, even if I have to start from scratch. His tone was resolute. I'm not disappearing again. He turned and walked towards the elevator. Olivia watched him go, torn between resentment and an unexpected, unwelcome compassion. I'll see you tomorrow at Central Park, she finally called out, her voice hesitant. At 4. Just 10 minutes. Michael nodded before the elevator doors closed. Olivia returned to the apartment, where Sophie awaited her with eyes full of questions. That man looks like the daddy I drew, the little girl said, showing her the notebook. Olivia looked at the drawing, then at her daughter. The weight of so many years of secrets was becoming unbearable. What if the fall from grace became the unexpected path to redemption, forcing a man to rebuild his life from scratch and fight for the only connections that truly mattered? Olivia watched from a park bench, a knot of apprehension tightening in her stomach. A few meters away, Michael Bell waited nervously, constantly checking his watch. The sky threatened rain, but neither of them seemed to notice, their attention consumed by the impending encounter. Remember, just 10 minutes, Olivia reminded Sophie, who bounced impatiently beside her. And don't tell him who he is yet. He's a friend. Why are you so serious, Mommy? The little girl asked, adjusting the ribbon in her hair, her innocent eyes wide with curiosity. I'm not serious, Olivia lied, forcing a smile. Go on, he's waiting for you. Sophie ran towards Michael, who awkwardly knelt to meet her eye level. Olivia watched the scene from a distance, her heart pounding, a whirlwind of emotions churning within her. She couldn't hear what they were saying, but she saw Sophie gesturing animatedly, her face alight with excitement, while Michael listened intently, nodding, completely absorbed in every word. 10 minutes stretched into 20. When Sophie finally returned, she was practically bouncing with joy. He's super fun, Mommy. He knows all the capital cities in the world, just like me. And he told me he used to collect colorful stones when he was a kid too. Olivia looked at Michael, who remained a discreet distance away, his gaze hopeful. That's great, my love. It's time to go. Can he come visit us someday? Sophie asked, her eyes shining. We'll see, Olivia replied evasively. Say goodbye now. Over the following weeks, life took an unexpected turn. One afternoon, while Olivia was grocery shopping, she saw Michael at the entrance of a nondescript commercial building. He was wearing a worn suit and handing out business cards to uninterested passersby. Valley Insurance. Michael Bell, financial advisor. She read on a card he offered to a man who walked past without a second glance. Olivia quickly hid behind a fruit stand, observing him. His face reflected a profound weariness, but he maintained a forced, almost painful smile. Nothing remained of the arrogant, powerful businessman she had known years ago. Dr. Hayes. Michael's voice startled her. He had approached without her noticing. I was just passing by, she stammered, feeling a strange mix of discomfort and an unwelcome sympathy. Are you selling insurance now? Michael nodded, stuffing the cards into his pocket. Life takes many turns. I lost the company, the house, the car, practically everything, he said, without a trace of self-pity. But I'm still moving forward. Where are you living? I'm renting a room at the Lopez boarding house, near the station. It's not the Marriott, but it has hot water and Wi-Fi. He offered a sad, self-deprecating smile. How's Sophie? She's fine. She asks about you. An uncomfortable silence settled between them. Michael, don't say anything, he interrupted, his voice gentle. I didn't seek you out to make you feel sorry for me. I just want the chance to get to know my daughter, even if it's just a little. Olivia nodded slightly. I'll call you, she said before walking away. her heart heavy with unspoken emotions. A week later, Sophie ran into the coffee shop where Olivia was waiting for her after school. Mommy, I saw him. I saw Mr. Michael. Olivia nearly spilled her coffee. Where? At the coffee shop across from my school. He was sitting alone, reading the newspaper. The little girl explained with breathless enthusiasm. He didn't see me, but I saw him. He looked sad, Mommy. Why is he sad? Olivia remained silent, processing the information, a knot tightening in her chest. Can I visit him again? Sophie pressed. He promised to teach me how to play chess. When did he promise you that? At the park. He said his dad taught him when he was my age. That night, as Sophie slept, Olivia talked to her mother in the kitchen. I don't know what to do, Mom. Seeing him like this, so different, so human. Money and power change people, honey, Mrs. Davis said wisely. Sometimes, losing everything is the only thing that brings us back to our humanity. And what if he's just pretending to get close to Sophie? For what purpose? He has nothing left. Olivia bit her lip, undecided. Sophie deserves to know her father, Mrs. Davis continued, her voice gentle. And he seems genuinely interested in being part of her life. At least, give him that chance. I was so scared all these years, Olivia confessed, her voice trembling. Scared he would show up with his lawyers and his money and take her away from me. And now that he's lost everything, are you still afraid? Olivia shook her head. It wasn't fear she felt anymore. It was something more complex, older. A wound that had never properly healed. What if a sudden medical crisis shattered the fragile truce, forcing a desperate mother to confront the truth about her ex-husband's hidden vulnerability and revealing the surprising depths of her own compassion? The next morning, Dr. Olivia Hayes called Michael Bell. Sophie can visit you once a week, she said without preamble, her voice firm but fair. As long as I'm present, and you respect certain rules. Really? Michael's voice lit up with an undeniable joy. Thank you, Olivia. I promise you won't regret it. Don't make promises you can't keep, she responded. The memory of past, broken promises still a faint ache. And one more thing. We still won't tell her who you really are, not until she's ready. I understand. Whatever you decide is fine. The first official meeting took place at a small coffee shop near the hospital. Michael arrived early, clutching a travel chess set and a small, neatly wrapped gift. Sophie ran towards him as soon as she saw him. You brought the chess set, she exclaimed, her eyes shining with excitement. And something else, he said, handing her the package. It was a collection of colorful stones, each one meticulously labeled with its scientific name. For your collection, Michael explained, a soft smile on his face. Mine was lost many years ago, but I remember every single stone. Sophie impulsively hugged him. The gesture caught Michael by surprise, and he looked at Olivia with moist eyes. She looked away, but a faint, almost imperceptible nod acknowledged the moment. As father and daughter began their first chess lesson, Olivia watched them from a distance. Something was changing, slowly but inexorably, like a wound finally beginning to heal. The visits between Michael and Sophie became a cherished routine. Every Thursday at 5, Olivia would observe them from a nearby table, as they played chess, drew pictures, or simply talked. The little girl blossomed with these visits, bringing new questions, new discoveries to share each week. It's amazing how much they look alike, Mrs. Davis commented one afternoon, her voice thoughtful. The same gestures when they're concentrating. The same laugh. Olivia nodded pensively. Seeing Michael with Sophie stirred a complex mix of emotions within her. Sometimes, when she saw them laughing together, she felt a sharp pang of regret for the years they had lost. Other times, a strange, unexpected peace settled over her, as if an incomplete circle was finally finding its closure. One day, while walking through the hospital corridors, Olivia noticed Michael in the waiting room. "What are you doing here?" she asked, surprised. "Today isn't Thursday." Michael looked up, his face pale, weary. "I have an appointment with Dr. Evans," he responded, forcing a smile. Nothing important, just a routine checkup. Evans, Olivia's professional instincts kicked in. He's a cardiologist. After the accident, there were some lingering issues, Michael admitted, downplaying it with a dismissive gesture. Probably nothing serious. Olivia narrowed her eyes, her medical training instantly on alert. What symptoms are you having? Fatigue, some pressure in my chest, occasional dizziness, he finally confessed. But I'm fine, really. I don't want to worry Sophie. Are you taking any medication? Just some painkillers they prescribed after the accident. Before she could respond, a nurse called Michael's name. He stood with some difficulty. I'll see you on Thursday, he said, walking away down the hallway. Olivia watched him go, a growing sense of unease settling in her stomach. 3 hours later, Dr. Evans intercepted her in the hospital cafeteria. Hayes, do you know Michael Bell? He asked without preamble. He was my patient. Why? Dr. Evans showed her some test results. He has severe post-traumatic complications. Damage to his aortic valve, probably caused by the impact of the accident. He needs surgery. Olivia reviewed the exams, a cold shiver running down her spine. Did you tell him? Yes, but he didn't seem surprised. I think he already suspected. Dr. Evans paused, his expression grave. The problem is, he doesn't have health insurance that covers the operation. With his current financial situation, Olivia closed her eyes for a moment, the weight of the revelation pressing down on her. What's the prognosis without surgery? 6 months, maybe less. Dr. Evans responded frankly. The valve is severely compromised. At any moment it could. I understand, Olivia interrupted, her voice tight. Where is he now? He left half an hour ago. He didn't want to be admitted. That night, after putting Sophie to bed, Olivia dialed Michael's number. Why didn't you tell me the truth? She asked directly when he answered. A long silence preceded his response. I didn't want to be another burden to you. I'm a doctor, Michael. This is literally my job. And I'm the man who abandoned you 8 years ago. His voice sounded tired, defeated. I have no right to ask you for anything more. This isn't about rights, Olivia responded, surprising even herself with the conviction in her voice. This is about Sophie. She needs you. Olivia, I can't pay for that surgery. I've sold everything I had of value. There are assistance programs. I can talk to the hospital director. Why would you do that? Michael interrupted, his voice filled with disbelief. After everything I did to you, Olivia fell silent, searching for an honest answer. Because Sophie deserves to have a father, she finally said, her voice soft but firm. And because no one should have to go through this alone. What if the past you tried to outrun returned with a vengeance, forcing you to confront your deepest fears and make impossible choices in a desperate race against time to save a life, and perhaps, a fragile new hope? The following Thursday, Michael Bell didn't show up for his usual meeting with Sophie. Dr. Olivia Hayes' daughter waited for an hour, patiently playing chess by herself, repeatedly asking when he would arrive. Maybe he had a problem at work, Olivia tried to explain, her own unease growing with each passing minute. I'll call him later, but Michael didn't answer his phone. Not that day, nor the next. Worried, Olivia decided to go look for him at the boarding house where he lived. She found him in bed, burning with fever, barely conscious. Michael, she exclaimed, rushing to his side. How long have you been like this? 2 days, he murmured, trying to sit up. Didn't want to bother you. You're an idiot, she said, quickly checking his vital signs, her medical training kicking in. I'm calling an ambulance. No, I can't pay for it, he protested weakly. Shut up and let me do my job. At the hospital, Michael was diagnosed with an infection related to his heart condition. Dr. Evans was clear. Without immediate surgery, his chances were minimal. I've spoken with the committee, Olivia informed Michael when he awoke, his eyes cloudy with fever. They've agreed to include you in the subsidized care program. How did you manage that? He asked, surprised, his voice raspy. Let's just say I had some pending favors, she replied, adjusting his pillow. The surgery is scheduled for Monday. Michael weakly took her hand, stopping her. I'm scared, he confessed, his voice barely audible. Not for me, Olivia, but for Sophie. For not having enough time to really know her. Olivia felt a lump in her throat. You'll have time, she assured him, gently squeezing his hand. I'll be with you during the surgery. Why? Why are you doing this? Olivia searched for the right words, the honest words. Because it's the right thing to do, she finally said, her gaze steady. They looked at each other in silence, the resentment of 8 years fading away, replaced not by promises, but by a fragile, unspoken understanding. They were two people bound by a shared past and a precarious present, a second chance they hadn't sought, but which now presented itself as an unexpected, daunting path. Thank you, Michael said simply. Olivia nodded and left the room. In the hallway, she leaned against the wall and took a deep, shuddering breath. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a very long time, she was willing to find out. What if the fight for survival unearthed a hidden legacy, a father's last words becoming a daughter's guiding light, forcing her to confront a past filled with pain and make a choice that could redefine her future? The clock read 7 in the morning when Michael was wheeled into the operating room. Olivia, dressed in street clothes instead of her usual medical scrubs, walked beside him as they pushed the gurney. Remember what we talked about, Michael said, his voice weak but resolute. If something goes wrong, nothing is going to go wrong, Olivia interrupted, her voice firm. Dr. Evans is the best cardiologist in the city. Still, he insisted, his gaze pleading. Promise me you'll tell her who I really am. Olivia nodded, briefly squeezing his hand. I promise, but you'll have to do it yourself. At the operating room entrance, Michael stopped her. There's a notebook in my room in the nightstand drawer. It's for Sophie. Before Olivia could respond, the doors closed, separating them. The waiting room was a limbo of suspended time. Olivia, accustomed to being on the other side of those doors, found the uncertainty unbearable. Every minute stretched into an eternity. She checked her phone. A message from Mrs. Davis, her mother, informing her that Sophie had eaten breakfast well and was ready for school. For hours later, Dr. Evans appeared, removing his surgical cap, his face etched with fatigue. We did it, he said, his voice weary but triumphant. The surgery was complicated, but he's stable. Now, everything depends on how he responds in the next 48 hours. Olivia exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Can I see him? In an hour, when they transfer him to recovery. That afternoon, Sophie arrived at the hospital accompanied by Mrs. Davis. The little girl carried a drawing for Michael. Is he very sick? She asked, with a seriousness unusual for her age. Olivia knelt to meet her daughter's gaze. Yes, my love. He's delicate, but the doctors are doing everything they can to make him better. Is he going to die? Sophie's direct question struck Olivia like a physical blow. I don't know, she responded honestly, her voice trembling slightly. But he's fighting very hard to stay. Sophie nodded, processing the information. He's important to you, Mommy. You take good care of him. Olivia looked at her mother, who nodded gently. Michael is a very special person, Sophie. Olivia began, choosing her words carefully. He's your daddy. Sophie's eyes widened enormously. My daddy? The one who was far away. Yes, he's been far away for a long time, but now he wants to meet you and be part of your life. The little girl remained silent for what felt like an eternity. Is that why he looks so much like me? She finally asked. Exactly why, Olivia responded with a sad smile. You have his same eyes. Can I see him? He's sleeping now, but maybe tomorrow. That night, as Sophie slept, Olivia found the notebook Michael had mentioned. It was a journal with entries dated from the day of the accident. She opened it with trembling hands. My dearest Sophie, the first entry read. I don't know if you'll ever read these words, I don't know if I'll have the privilege of watching you grow up. But I want you to know that from the moment I knew you existed, my life changed forever. Olivia read page after page, silent tears streaming down her cheeks. They were letters written over weeks, confessions, regrets, hopes, and dreams for a daughter he was only just beginning to know. On the last page, she found a letter with her name. Olivia, if you're reading this, things probably didn't go as we hoped. I want you to know that these last few months have been a gift I didn't deserve. Seeing our daughter, getting to know her even a little, has been the greatest joy of my life. I'm not asking for forgiveness because I know I don't deserve it. I only ask that you speak of me to her someday. Not of the man who abandoned you, but of the one who came back and tried to make amends, even if it was too late. With love, always, Michael. Olivia closed the notebook, and for the first time in 8 years, she wept without restraint, a torrent of grief and a fragile, burgeoning hope. What if the long road to recovery became a journey of rediscovery, forging an unconventional family bond built on forgiveness, shared hope, and the unwavering love for a child who connected them all? The following days were critical. Michael Bell developed post-operative complications that kept him sedated and closely monitored. Dr. Olivia Hayes divided her time between the hospital, Sophie, and her demanding work, sleeping only when absolutely necessary, fueled by a desperate hope. A week later, Michael finally opened his eyes. "Sophie?" was his first word. "She's at school," Olivia replied, adjusting his foredrip, a wave of relief washing over her. "She'll come later." "You told her?" "Yes. She knows you're her father." A single tear rolled down Michael's cheek. "How did she take it?" "Better than both of us combined," Olivia smiled faintly. "She says she always knew that you have the same eyes." Michael tried to sit up, but a grimace of pain stopped him. "The surgery was successful," Olivia explained, "but you'll have some permanent limitations. Your mobility in your left arm will be reduced, and you'll need constant medication. I'll be able to work eventually. You'll need physical therapy for several months." Michael nodded, absorbing the information. "I want to do it right this time, Olivia. Be the father Sophie deserves, even if it's from a distance." "It doesn't have to be from a distance," she responded, surprising even herself. "Sophie needs her father close." That afternoon, when Sophie entered the room, she stopped at the door, suddenly shy. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi, Sophie," Michael replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm sorry I missed our chess game." The little girl slowly approached. "Are you better?" "Much better now that you're here." Sophie looked at Olivia, who nodded gently, then she moved closer to the bed. "Mommy says you're my daddy," she said directly, her gaze unwavering. Michael swallowed hard. "Yes, I am. I'm so sorry I wasn't with you before." "Why weren't you?" "Because I made mistakes, Sophie." "Many mistakes," he responded honestly. "But I'm trying to fix them. If you give me a chance." Sophie seemed to consider it seriously before nodding. "Okay, but you have to promise you won't leave again." "I promise." The little girl smiled, and to the surprise of both adults, she carefully climbed onto the bed and hugged Michael. Olivia watched them from the doorway, feeling something that had been broken for a very long time finally beginning to heal. What if the fragile steps towards a new beginning were paved with shared laughter, patient understanding, and the quiet strength of a family learning to redefine itself, proving that love can indeed find a way, even amidst the deepest scars. The change of season brought with it new beginnings. Michael, after 3 months of intensive physical therapy, had regained partial mobility in his left arm. His body, once weakened, gained strength day by day. But the greatest transformation was not physical. "Are you sure you don't want me to accompany you?" Olivia asked as she helped him pack. He had accumulated a few belongings during his stay in her spare guest room. "This is something I need to do alone," Michael replied, carefully folding a shirt. "You've already done enough, letting me stay here during my recovery." Olivia nodded, remembering the decision she had made to offer him temporary lodging while he recuperated. A practical decision, she had told herself. easier for medical visits, and for Sophie to see him regularly. Nothing more. Have you told Sophie yet? Last night. Michael smiled faintly. She said as long as she can visit me, she'll be happy. The apartment Michael had found was in Lincoln Park, a simple but dignified neighborhood. 2 small bedrooms, a basic kitchen, and a living room that would also serve as a dining area. It's not much, he commented when he showed the place to Olivia and Sophie. But it's a start. The second bedroom he had specially prepared for when Sophie visited. Walls painted light green, her favorite color, a small bookshelf, and a chessboard permanently set up by the window. I love it, the little girl exclaimed, excitedly exploring the space. Can I sleep over someday? Michael looked at Olivia, who nodded gently. Of course, princess, whenever your mom says it's okay. Life began to find a new rhythm. Michael found a job at the neighborhood public library, cataloging books and organizing cultural events. The salary was modest, but enough to support himself and contribute to Sophie's expenses. Once a month, according to the agreement with Olivia, Sophie spent the entire day with him. They visited museums, parks, or simply stayed home playing chess and telling stories. No grand luxuries, no extravagant gifts, just shared time. Olivia observed this evolution with mixed emotions. Michael's transformation was undeniable. The arrogant, self-centered man she had known had become someone thoughtful, patient, acutely aware of his limitations. Do you think they'll ever get back together? Mrs. Davis asked one night, as they watched Sophie pack her backpack for her monthly visit. No, Mom, Olivia replied with certainty. That chapter is closed. But they get along so well now, and he's changed. Yes, he's changed, and I'm happy for Sophie. Olivia smiled with a hint of melancholy. But some wounds, even when they heal, leave scars that can't be ignored. What if a simple gesture, an unexpected invitation, forced you to confront the unspoken truths lingering between past pain and present peace, revealing that some connections, no matter how fractured, never truly fade? Spring arrived with an unexpected invitation. Michael Bell had organized a small children's reading event at the library and wanted Sophie to participate. It would be important for her, he said during one of their weekly calls. And for me too, if you could come. Dr. Olivia Hayes hesitated. Until now, they had kept their interactions to the bare minimum. Drop-offs and pickups for Sophie, brief conversations about school or the little girl's health. Nothing personal, nothing that could complicate the fragile peace they had carefully constructed. I'll think about it, she finally responded. The day of the event, Olivia found herself sitting in the last row of the library's small reading room. Michael, dressed simply but neatly, directed the activity with a natural ease that surprised her. The children adored him. Sophie beamed with pride as she saw her father applauding her reading. When it all ended, Michael approached her timidly. Thank you for coming, he said sincerely. It meant a lot to Sophie. You did well, Olivia replied, a genuine warmth in her voice. You have a talent for this. Want to grab a coffee? The invitation slipped out so spontaneously that it seemed to surprise even him. Olivia felt an impulse to accept, a flicker of her old self, but something held her back. I don't think that's a good idea, Michael. He nodded without insisting. I understand. Just thank you for giving me this chance with Sophie. I know I didn't deserve it. It's not about deserving, she responded. It's about what's best for her. The months passed. The established routine worked. Michael never missed a school meeting, an important event, or his scheduled encounters with Sophie. He punctually paid his share of the expenses and never asked for more time than agreed. One particularly sunny Sunday, Olivia was strolling through Lincoln Park when she saw them in the distance. Michael and Sophie were sitting on the grass, Sophie reading something from a book while he listened with absolute attention. There was no pretense in his attitude, no attempt to impress. Just a father genuinely enjoying the company of his daughter. Olivia stopped, observing them without approaching. Something in that image deeply moved her. It wasn't nostalgia for what could have been, but an acceptance of what was. A reconfigured family, imperfect but functional. Michael looked up and saw her. For a moment, their gazes met across the distance. There was no accusation in his eyes, no expectation, just a quiet recognition. He smiled faintly. She returned the smile. A simple gesture without promises or commitments. Then she turned and continued her walk, her steps light, her heart calm. It wasn't happiness she felt, not exactly. It was something different, more subtle but equally valuable. The peace of having made the right decision, not the easiest one. The certainty that everyone, in their own way, was exactly where they needed to be. As she walked away, Olivia thought of all the possible lives she hadn't lived, all the paths she hadn't taken. And for the first time, she felt no regret for any of them. What if a hidden journal, filled with a father's unspoken regrets and profound love, became the key to unlocking a daughter's understanding, bridging the gap between a painful past and a hopeful future? The afternoon sun streamed through the window, creating golden patterns on the wooden floor. Sophie, now 14, sat on the edge of her bed, holding a small, worn leather-bound journal in her hands. Her fingers traced the pages carefully, as if touching something sacred. "The first time I read this, I was 8, she murmured to herself. I understood the words, but not their meaning. She opened the journal to a page marked with a faded red ribbon. Her father's firm but slightly slanted handwriting filled the paper with blue ink. My dearest Sophie, today you turn 10, a decade of life that, for the most part, I missed. As I write this, I'm watching you sleep on the sofa in my small apartment, after our movie afternoon. You snore softly, just like me, though your mother insists my snores are more like a bear's. It's strange how genetics manifest in these little details." Sophie smiled, remembering that afternoon. It had been the first time her mother had allowed her to sleep over at her father's house. She remembered feeling nervous at first, but the nervousness dissipated with popcorn and shared laughter. She turned a few pages, stopping at another entry. Sometimes I wonder what our life would have been like if I had made different decisions. If I had been present from the beginning. If I had been the man your mother deserved. I can't change the past, but every day I try to earn the right to be in your future. Sophie closed her eyes for a moment, processing the words. For years, these letters had been her window into the soul of a man who was learning to be a father while she was learning to have him in her life. She continued flipping through until she reached almost the end of the journal. An entry dated 3 years ago caught her attention. My dearest Sophie, your mother told me today about your first math award. She was so proud she could barely speak without her voice breaking. She invited me for coffee to show me photos from the ceremony. It's the first time we've shared something like that, without tension, without the weight of the past between us. It's a different kind of family we've formed, but it's our family. I hope someday you understand that loving is also knowing when not to insist. Your mother taught me that. I wanted to get everything back. Her, you, the life we could have had. But she, with her quiet wisdom, showed me that sometimes the greatest love is the one that allows each person to follow their own path. We're not together and we never will be, but we are at peace. And you, my brilliant girl, are the bridge that keeps our separate shores connected. A tear rolled down Sophie's cheek. She closed the journal carefully and looked up. Olivia stood in the doorway, watching her silently. How long have you been there? Sophie asked, wiping her face with the back of her hand. Not long, Olivia replied, entering the room. Are you okay? Sophie nodded, clutching the journal to her chest. I was just remembering, trying to understand. Olivia sat beside her, her hand finding her daughter's. And have you found answers? Some. Sophie looked at her mother with curiosity. Dad writes that you'll never get back together. Did you never forgive him? Olivia smiled with a hint of melancholy. Forgiveness and love are different things, Sophie. I forgave him a long time ago. That allowed us to build this relationship we have now, where we can both be your parents without hurting each other. But you could have tried. Sometimes, Olivia interrupted gently. The greatest act of love is recognizing that two people can care deeply for each other and still not be right for one another. Sophie reflected on these words, caressing the worn cover of the journal. My piano recital is in 2 days. She changed the subject. Dad's coming, right? Of course. He wouldn't miss it for the world. Olivia ran a hand through her daughter's hair. In fact, he called me yesterday to ask if we could sit together this time. And what did you tell him? That yes, Olivia responded naturally. After all, we're a family. Unconventional, but family nonetheless. Sophie smiled, satisfied with the answer. She put the journal in her drawer and stood up, stretching. Grandma made tamales, she reported. She said if we don't go now, she'll eat them all herself. Olivia laughed, rising too. You go ahead. I'll catch up in a minute. When Sophie left, Olivia stood looking at the drawer where the journal was kept. So many years, so many stories, so many moments of pain slowly transformed into acceptance. She remembered the last conversation she had with Michael the previous week, when he picked up Sophie after her monthly visit. They had talked about Sophie's future, about the universities she was considering, about the changes that were coming, without resentment, without regret. Just two adults sharing the most precious thing in their lives. Mom, Grandma's making good on her threat. Sophie's voice pulled her back to the present. I'm coming, she responded, heading towards the door. As she left, she cast one last glance at the room. The past didn't disappear, but it no longer weighed her down as before. It had transformed into lessons, into growth, into the quiet wisdom that only comes after having weathered the storm. No, it wasn't the life she had imagined. It was better. It was real. It was hers. Were you moved by the story of Olivia, Michael, and Sophie? Their lives show us that true love sometimes means letting go, forgiving, and building bridges where walls once stood. Sometimes, second chances arrive in unexpected ways, and family can take forms we never imagined. Share this video if you felt that mix of emotions that only real stories can evoke. Leave us a comment telling us which part touched your heart the most. And if you want to keep discovering stories that explore the complexity of human relationships, subscribe to our channel and tell us, where are you watching this story of forgiveness and second chances from?
The rain had ceased, yet the streets remained glistening with moisture, mirroring the luminous city lights. Andrew Holmes entered the quaint little cafe, anticipating merely a swift coffee stop before returning to his duties. Just as he extended his hand toward his phone, a soft sniffle drew his focus. He turned, noticing a small boy by the corner, his tousled blonde hair and shimmering blue eyes filled with unshed tears. Andrew was not the type of person to engage in the troubles of others he didn't know. Yet there was something in the child's demeanor, that look of longing in his eyes, the way he held his small hands tightly together, that caused him to stop in his tracks. Then the boy gazed up at him and murmured, "I can't find my mommy." Andrew felt a constriction in his chest. Unbeknownst to him, in just a few moments, everything he knew was on the brink of transformation. The rain ceased an hour prior, leaving the streets moist and the atmosphere heavy with the aroma of damp pavement and freshly brewed coffee. Andrew Holmes never intended to find himself in this situation. He seldom stepped into quaint cafes such as this, favoring the polished, corporate vibe of the upscale venues his peers often visited. Today had been a draining day, packed with consecutive meetings, and for once, he craved a serene moment away from the imposing confines of his office. Upon entering, he was greeted by the rich aroma of roasted coffee beans mingling with a hint of sweetness that enveloped the space. The cafe exuded a quaint charm, featuring an array of mismatched chairs and warm yellow lights that created a gentle ambience for the few patrons scattered at their tables. Andrew was lost in his own world as he fished out his phone, planning to glance at his emails while he waited for his order. At that moment, he became aware of it. A faint, subdued cry. Initially, he brushed it aside. The city buzzed with a cacophony of sounds, as hurried footsteps mingled with overlapping dialogues, while the faint murmur of traffic lingered in the background. Yet, this was unlike anything else. The atmosphere was serene, almost concealed, as if there was an effort to remain unseen. Andrew tilted his head just enough to catch sight of a tiny silhouette lingering by the cafe's corner. A small boy, perhaps not more than 4 years old, stood by himself, his little hands clutching the edge of a wooden table. His tousled blonde hair framed his face, while his striking blue eyes, which held an uncanny resemblance to something from the past, shimmered with unfallen tears. He cast furtive glances, his lower lip quivering as though he was making a tremendous effort to hold back tears. Andrew scowled. Something felt off. A solitary boy stood by himself. No grown-up loomed in the vicinity, no guardian keeping an eye on him. Despite his reservations, Andrew tucked his phone into his pocket and approached. He didn't have a natural affinity for children. He didn't have any strong feelings against them, but he also hadn't really been in their company for long. His existence revolved around commerce, precision, and mastery. This circumstance was far from any of those descriptions. He lowered himself, careful not to frighten the boy. "Greetings, my friend. Are you all right?" The boy jumped a bit, his blue eyes growing wide as he gazed up at Andrew. For a brief instant, he appeared hesitant to respond, his tiny hands gripping the edge of the table with increasing tension. Andrew lowered his tone. "Are you accompanied by anyone?" The young lad paused, a soft whimper escaping him. "My mother." Andrew surveyed his surroundings once more. Where could she be? The boy's lip trembled, and this time, a tear cascaded down. I'm uncertain." His voice was soft, almost lost in the air. "She is gone from my life." Andrew experienced an unforeseen sensation knotting in his chest. The boy felt a deep sense of fear, a genuine terror that gripped him. He wasn't merely waiting for his mother, he was adrift. "All right," Andrew replied softly. "May I ask for your name?" The young lad dabbed at his eyes with the cuff of his tiny jacket. "Olivier." Andrew gave a slight nod. "What a fantastic name. All right, Olivier, let's work through this together. Can you recall the last time you were with your mom?" Olivier swiftly shook his head. "She was engaged in her tasks. She instructed me to remain at the back, but boredom got the better of me, and now I seem to have lost track of her." His voice wavered at the end, as if he feared he had committed a grave mistake. Andrew's jaw clenched. She was busy, which indicated she must be somewhere in the cafe. He rose to his feet and faced the counter, where a barista was engaged in taking an order from a customer. Andrew moved closer, softly resting his hand on Olivier's shoulder in a gesture of comfort. "Excuse me," Andrew stated, his tone steady yet assertive. "This young lad is adrift. He mentioned that his mother is employed here. Could you assist in locating her?" The barista's eyes sparkled with surprise as she looked down at Olivier. "Alas! That is the child of Lily." She pivoted to face the rear of the cafe and elevated her voice. "Lily! Hurry up!" The sound of footsteps echoed from the employee entrance at the rear of the cafe. Andrew hardly had a moment to absorb the situation when a woman burst in, her face a mask of urgency as she scanned the room frantically. In that moment, she became utterly still. Her eyes found Olivier first, her whole being relaxing with a sense of relief. Yet, in that fleeting moment, her gaze rose and caught his. Andrew froze in place. He recognized those eyes. Such a visage. That voice, when she breathed in softly, taken aback by surprise. Before him stood Lillian Brooks. The woman who had disappeared from his existence 4 years prior. The woman who had once been his entire world. The woman now cradled a little boy with striking blue eyes. Lillian Brooks found herself gasping for air. In that fleeting moment, the sheer joy of discovering her son unharmed eclipsed all other thoughts. She knelt down, enveloping Olivier in her embrace, her fingers gently tracing through his hair and across his cheeks, ensuring he was safe and sound. "You frightened me, darling," she murmured, placing a gentle kiss on his forehead. "I instructed you to remain at the rear." Olivier sniffled yet held on to her tightly. "I apologize, mother. I had no intention of doing that." She breathed out unsteadily, gripping him more firmly. Yet, in that moment, she lifted her gaze. And that was the moment when the burden of reality descended upon her. Andrew Holmes stood directly before her. Her chest constricted, breath snagging in her throat. For years had passed since their last encounter, yet he appeared unchanged, dressed in a sharp suit, his piercing blue eyes still captivating, and that unmistakable presence that seemed to shrink the space around him as he entered. Yet, there was an unmistakable shift in the way he gazed at her in that moment. It was more than mere astonishment. It was more than mere disbelief. It was an awakening. He had encountered Olivier. He cast a glance in his direction. He had assembled the fragments into a coherent whole. In a moment that stretched into eternity, silence enveloped them both. Andrew's eyes darted between her and the boy nestled in her embrace, his jaw clenched, his whole frame rigid with tension. At last, his voice pierced the heavy stillness. "Does he belong to me?" Lillian felt a sinking sensation in her stomach. She had envisioned this moment countless times throughout the years, contemplating the words she would choose if their paths crossed once more. She had assured herself that she was ready for it. Yet, in this moment, with Andrew before her and his son cradled in her arms, an overwhelming wave of emotion threatened to engulf her. Olivier, oblivious to the tempest gathering among the grown-ups, tilted his head ever so slightly. "Mother?" Lillian took a deep breath. "Olivier, darling, could you please take a seat over there for a moment? I'll be with you shortly." He paused for a moment, then nodded, rubbing his eyes as he settled into one of the nearby cafe chairs. Once he was out of earshot, Andrew moved in closer, his voice dropping to a lower yet equally intense tone. "Answer me, please." Lillian's fingers clenched tightly, her whole being urging her to flee. Yet, there remained no place to turn. She compelled herself to meet his gaze. "Indeed," she murmured. "He belongs to you." Andrew gasped, as though she had struck him. Lillian observed the tempest brewing within him, the gradual deceleration of his breath, and the tightening of his hands at his sides as he grappled with the reality before him. She was uncertain of the response she had anticipated, but when he finally spoke, it was not one of anger. It was something far more dreadful. "You never mentioned it," he said, his voice soft, nearly inscrutable. "For years, Lily." She recoiled at the mention of the name. It had been ages since anyone had referred to her that way. She paused, coming to the unsettling realization that words eluded her. No justifications could erase her actions. Andrew raked his fingers through his hair, each motion precise and taut. "What is the reason?" Lillian briefly shut her eyes. She needed to regain her composure. She needed to clarify. Fear gripped her, she confessed, her voice scarcely rising above a whisper. "Your attention was entirely devoted to your profession, your organization, and the creation of your legacy. We were already unraveling when I discovered I was expecting, Andrew. You expressed quite explicitly that family was not a priority for you. I believed that by sharing this with you, you would provide financial assistance, but nothing beyond that." Andrew's demeanor shifted to one of gloom. "So you took it upon yourself to decide for me?" Lillian felt a constriction in her throat. "I believed I was acting in his best interest." He emitted a brief, mirthless chuckle. "What stood out the most? Do you really believe that holding on to my own son was the right choice?" Lillian averted her gaze. Andrew let out a sharp breath, his hands resting on his hips as he turned slightly, attempting to steady himself. For a brief interlude, silence enveloped them both. The atmosphere was thick with unease. Then, all at once, his voice took on a serene quality. Yet, there was an underlying strength to it. I wish to understand him better. Lillian's head jerked upward. Excuse me. Andrew gazed at her, his cerulean eyes steady and resolute. I desire to understand him better. I wasted 4 years, Lily. I refuse to experience any more losses. Fear seized her. She had devoted so much time to maintaining the divide in their lives, persuading herself that her choices were justified. Yet here she was, confronted by the man she had once cherished, witnessing the turmoil that had engulfed his life. In that moment, she understood that she was utterly unprepared for what lay ahead. Andrew, I'm not asking, he cut in, his tone resolute yet gentle. He is my son, and I will be involved in his life. Regardless of your preferences. Lillian gazed at him, her heart racing. She felt compelled to engage in a debate. She was determined to battle. Yet, beneath the surface, she understood he was correct. Once, she had stripped him of his choice. She found herself unable to attempt it once more. At last, she let out a breath, her shoulders drooping in resignation. Understood. Andrew gave a single nod. It was not about forgiveness. It wasn't a solution. Yet, it marked the beginning. Andrew hardly found rest that night. His thoughts raced uncontrollably, each one crashing into the next in a chaotic whirlwind. He entered the cafe with the simple intention of enjoying a brief coffee break, seeking a fleeting moment of tranquility before plunging back into his tasks. Instead, he had left with the knowledge that he had a son. A child he had never known, a child he had never had the opportunity to cherish, a child who had spent 4 years maturing in his absence. As dawn broke, he found clarity in his thoughts and resolved to take action. He was determined not to let another day slip by without discovering more about Olivier. He had already squandered far too much time. He reached the cafe ahead of schedule, his anxiety revealing itself in a manner it never had previously. He had sealed billion-dollar deals with ease, embraced business risks that could have jeopardized everything, yet none of it matched the uncertainty he faced in this moment. Encountering his own son shouldn't evoke a sense of unfamiliarity, yet it undeniably did. As he entered, his gaze instinctively sought them out. Lillian had arrived first, seated at a quaint table by the window, with Olivier at her side. The young lad dangled his feet beneath the chair, his attention fixed on the stack of pancakes awaiting him. Andrew compelled himself to inhale deeply before moving ahead. Lillian raised her gaze initially, her demeanor cautious yet composed. She had hardly uttered a word since consenting to his involvement in Olivier's life, and now, as she observed him, he sensed that she was still grappling with whether she had made the correct choice. Olivier looked up next, his mouth still stuffed with pancake. He stared at Andrew for a moment, then gulped down hard. "You returned," he remarked, his tone laced with astonishment. Andrew felt a constriction in his chest at the sheer innocence of the statement. Did he really believe he wouldn't? Had he already come to understand that people often do not remain? "I told you I would," Andrew remarked, as he drew out the chair opposite them. "I honor my commitments." Olivier scrutinized him, weighing the truth of his words. He nodded, a look of satisfaction crossing his face at the response. Lillian adjusted her posture, clearing her throat as she settled into her chair. "We were simply enjoying our breakfast. I was uncertain about the time of your arrival. I had no intention of arriving late." Andrew cast a quick look at Olivier's plate before shifting his gaze to the additional one resting nearby. "Have you placed the order for me?" Lillian paused, uncertainty flickering in her mind. I wasn't certain if you would desire anything." Olivier, on the other hand, appeared to possess unwavering confidence. "Feel free to take some of mine," he said, nudging his plate a bit closer. "Mother says that sharing is beneficial." Andrew's lips curled slightly, a hint of humor breaking the seriousness of the moment. She is correct. He lifted a fork and took a delicate bite, disregarding Lillian's gaze, which seemed to dissect his every action. The pancakes had a hint of chill, yet he hardly paid it any mind. Olivier smiled broadly. Do you enjoy pancakes? Andrew gave a slight nod. Indeed. It's been some time since I last enjoyed them. The young lad inhaled sharply. What's the reason behind that? Andrew paused, aware that he lacked a response that wouldn't come off as absurd at this moment. It seems I've been quite occupied. Olivier scowled. Overwhelmed with tasks, pancakes will have to wait. Andrew cast a sidelong glance at Lillian, who seemed absorbed in her coffee, avoiding any engagement. He cast a glance back at Olivier. Overwhelmed with numerous commitments. The words lingered in the air for a brief moment, yet Olivier chose not to linger on them. He returned to his meal, appearing satisfied that his pancakes were now being enjoyed by others. Lillian at last found her voice. I'm unsure about your intentions in this situation, Andrew. He locked eyes with her. I desire moments with my son. She let out a breath. It's more complex than that. It is to me, he stated with conviction. I wish to avoid causing any upheaval in his life. I wish to avoid any confusion for him. However, I refuse to turn my back. Lillian gazed at him for an extended moment, as though assessing his words, searching for any flaws within them. At last, she let out a deep breath. Let's take our time to ease into this. Brief encounters. Moments shared. I won't push him into anything he's not prepared for. Andrew gave a slight nod. That seems reasonable. Olivier glanced back and forth between them, then tilted his head thoughtfully. Does this imply that you'll be present more often? Andrew felt a constriction in his throat. Indeed, young one. Indeed, it does. The boy pondered this for a moment, then a smile spread across his face. Understood. In an instant, the atmosphere in the room transformed. It hadn't vanished entirely, but it felt more subdued. Simpler. Lillian appeared uncertain, grappling with her decision, yet Andrew noticed a subtle glimmer of hope beginning to shine in her eyes. As Olivier excitedly shared his thoughts on his favorite cartoons and expressed his desire to learn how to ride a bike, Andrew had a moment of realization. This was not going to be a simple task. For the first time in his life, he felt a deep yearning to strive for something beyond mere success. Andrew had always been decisive. In the realm of business, in the art of decision-making, in every facet of his existence, he had consistently exuded confidence. Yet, as he stood before Lillian's apartment door, an unfamiliar sensation washed over him, uncertainty. A week had passed since their breakfast at the café, a week since Olivier had gazed up at him with those striking blue eyes and inquired if he intended to stay. Andrew fulfilled his commitment, showing up each day and gradually integrating into his son's daily life. Brief strolls to the park, leisurely afternoons at the café where Lillian was employed, and extended discussions about dinosaurs and superheroes. It was unfamiliar, peculiar, and daunting in ways he had not anticipated. Yet it also seemed. Indeed. Lillian had exercised caution. She remained nearby, never fully abandoning them, always within hearing distance, always observing. He grasped the concept. She was still contemplating whether she could place her trust in him, and if he would indeed keep his promises. Indeed, he was as well. Today felt unique. Today marked the first occasion when Lillian welcomed him into their home. Andrew rapped twice, adjusting his stance as he lingered in anticipation. The door creaked open moments later, revealing Lillian, her brown eyes meticulously examining his face as if she were weighing the merits of this encounter. She silently moved aside, granting him entry. The apartment, though compact, exuded a cozy warmth. Sunlight poured through the windows, enveloping the humble furnishings in a warm, golden glow. Several children's books lay haphazardly on the couch, while toy cars were arranged with meticulous order on the coffee table, suggesting that Olivier had arranged them with thoughtful care. It was a stark contrast to Andrew's familiar surroundings. His realm was polished, contemporary, crafted with intention. This space exuded a sense of warmth, resembling a home in a manner his penthouse never could. From the hallway, Olivier's voice echoed, vibrant and brimming with enthusiasm. "Mommy, is he here yet?" Lillian hardly had a moment to respond when Olivier burst into the living room, a broad smile lighting up his face. His golden locks clung to his forehead, still glistening from a recent bath, while he donned pajamas adorned with whimsical little rocket ships. He came to a sudden halt in front of Andrew, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "You came," he said, as if he had been holding on to the hope that Andrew might reconsider. Andrew lowered himself, aligning his gaze with the other. "I mentioned I would do that." Olivier's smile grew brighter, and in a spontaneous gesture, he took hold of Andrew's hand and pulled him toward the couch. "Take a look at my creation." Andrew allowed himself to be drawn along, taken aback by the ease with which it unfolded. He settled into his seat as Olivier ascended next to him, beaming as he gestured toward a vibrant assortment of blocks meticulously arranged on the coffee table. "It's a space station," Olivier elaborated, his tone brimming with enthusiasm. "For those who traverse the cosmos and the beings that inhabit it." Andrew examined it with the gravity it warranted. "It appears quite remarkable. I believe there's potential for additional astronauts." Olivier nodded with enthusiasm. "Indeed. We have the potential to create even more." Andrew grasped a handful of blocks, allowing the boy to guide their collaborative effort. Time seemed to blur, and eventually, Lillian took a seat opposite them, observing in silence. "You're quite adept with him," she remarked after a moment, her tone gentler than it had been. Andrew cast a fleeting look in her direction. "I am making an effort." She let out a breath, curling her legs beneath her on the couch. "He's still navigating through all of this." "I feel the same way." Andrew meticulously positioned a small block atop their expanding creation. "I understand. However, I have no intention of leaving, Lillian." She observed him intently, as though weighing the truth of her conviction. Olivier, unaware of the gravity of their discussion, looked at Andrew with wide eyes. "Shall we visit the park tomorrow?" Andrew acted without a moment's pause. "Certainly." Lillian let out a soft sigh, yet a faint smile danced on her lips. "Looks like I'll be enjoying a leisurely afternoon break." Andrew locked eyes with her. "Alternatively, I could handle it on my own." Her expression changed in an instant, becoming cautious once more. "It's premature for that." Andrew chose not to engage in a dispute. He decided not to exert any pressure. "Then we all go," he stated plainly. Lillian eased a bit, as though comforted by the agreement. Olivier, however, had already progressed, lifting his space station and placing it meticulously on the table as if it were the most significant object in existence. Andrew found himself on an uncertain path, yet for the first time, he was free from the weight of future considerations. He was neither plotting nor anticipating the future. At last, he was just present. And it seemed just as it should be. The following afternoon, Andrew found himself in an unexpected scenario, standing in a park, clutching a juice box, and observing a 4-year-old darting around him with endless enthusiasm. He had navigated intense negotiations, fierce boardroom confrontations, and multi-million-dollar mergers, yet nothing could have equipped him for the challenge of keeping pace with a child who appeared to have endless energy. Olivier dashed across the playground, his joyous laughter echoing as he scaled the jungle gym with remarkable agility. His tiny hands clutched the bars firmly as he ascended, then he turned to wave at Andrew with a sense of pride. "Behold my elevation." Andrew nodded, squinting against the bright afternoon sun. "That's quite remarkable." Lillian, positioned a short distance away, emitted a gentle chuckle. "He ascends every surface." It seems as though he is completely unafraid. Andrew looked at her, picking up on the affectionate frustration in her tone. Today, she wore a casual outfit, her hair pulled back, exuding a sense of relaxation that was noticeably different from their earlier encounters. It was the first time he had encountered her beyond the confines of work, beyond the cafe, in an atmosphere that felt ordinary. He inherited that from you, he remarked, observing as Olivier meticulously started his descent. Lillian raised an eyebrow. Do you really believe that? Andrew wore a sly grin. You always faced challenges head-on. She let out a breath, her gaze drifting elsewhere. That feels like ages ago. Andrew understood her implication. Their history was intricate. Once, they were utterly inseparable, and he had held the belief that she would forever remain at his side. Yet, at some point in the journey, ambition seized control, priorities realigned, and she departed, leaving no trace, no rationale. Up to this point. Olivier dashed back toward them, his cheeks aglow from the warmth, a broad smile lighting up his face. I wish to take a ride on the swings. Andrew pointed to the vacant swings in the vicinity. Let's proceed. Olivier took his hand firmly, and Andrew was surprised by the warmth that blossomed in his chest from such a straightforward, trusting action. He trailed the boy to the swings, hoisting him onto the seat before positioning himself behind him. Are you prepared? Olivier responded with enthusiasm. Lift me up. Andrew let out a soft laugh. Not excessively elevated. Your mother may have some strong feelings about this. Lillian let out a derisive snort from behind them. That is indeed correct. Andrew propelled Olivier with a decisive shove, observing the boy soar ahead, his joyous laughter echoing around them. He pressed on, settling into a cadence, absorbing Olivier's musings about his beloved cartoons, his preferred treats, and the new sneakers he desired for their promise of speed. It felt peculiar. Though their acquaintance was brief, every moment spent with the boy felt instinctive, as if their connection had been destined from the very beginning. Eventually, Olivier eased his pace, shuffling his feet through the sand to bring the swing to a halt. He glanced at Andrew, curiosity etched across his face. Greetings, sir. Andrew wore a sly grin. Still referring to me as Mr., are you? Olivier inclined his head. How would you like me to address you? Andrew paused, casting a fleeting look at Lillian. She observed them intently, yet remained silent. He cast a glance at Olivier, maintaining a calm tone. Feel free to refer to me however you like, my friend. Olivier appeared to ponder it for an extended moment. With a subtle, assured nod, he flashed a grin. All right, Andrew. Something within him contorted in an unforeseen manner. It wasn't a matter of rejection, he simply hadn't anticipated that Olivier would instantly refer to him as Dad. He still had to prove himself for that. Yet, when his son spoke his name, so effortlessly and with such ease, it felt like a significant moment. A modest yet significant stride. Andrew beamed. Absolutely, my friend. Olivier leaped from the swing and grasped his hand. I would like to have some ice cream. Is it possible for us to do that? Andrew cast a fleeting look at Lillian, his eyes silently seeking her consent. She let out a sigh, yet a smile graced her lips. Understood. However, no chocolate, it ends up all over the place. Olivier let out a deep, frustrated sigh. Mother. Andrew chuckled, playfully tousling the boy's hair. How about we grab some ice cream, my little friend? As they strolled away from the swings, Olivier's tiny hand still clasped in his, Andrew came to a realization. For years, he had been convinced that success was defined by figures, by influence, by the next significant achievement. Yet, this moment, this bond, this deepening trust, seemed to hold greater significance than anything else. For the first time in his life, he found himself free from the burden of contemplating what lay ahead. He was just present. He felt an unwavering desire to remain exactly where he was. The sun was beginning its descent as they arrived at the quaint ice cream shop nestled at the street's corner. Olivier pulled on Andrew's hand, nearly bursting with enthusiasm as he glanced at the vibrant menu showcased on the glass counter. His blue eyes sparkled with excitement as he enthusiastically gestured towards the flavors, his enthusiasm seemingly boundless. "I want vanilla," Olivier declared, his face pressed against the glass. "Adorned with vibrant rainbow sprinkles." Andrew smirked, casting a sidelong glance at Lillian, who responded with an amused shake of her head and a soft sigh. "You always choose vanilla," she playfully remarked. Olivier faced her, his eyes widening in exaggerated disbelief. "It's simply the finest." Andrew let out a soft laugh as he approached the counter. "Vanilla adorned with a cascade of rainbow sprinkles, understood." He cast a fleeting look at Lillian. "What about you?" She paused, her arms gently folding across her chest. "I'm doing well." Andrew arched an eyebrow. "So, ice cream isn't your thing?" Lillian let out an exasperated sigh. "Certainly, I simply—" "Mommy has a fondness for strawberries," Olivier interjected with a sly smile. "Yet she never acquires it for her own sake." Andrew fixed her with a pointed gaze, anticipating a rebuttal, yet she merely sighed, casting a glance at her son before muttering, "Fine. Delightful strawberry." Shortly thereafter, they found themselves seated at a small metal table outdoors, the evening air refreshing yet enjoyable. Olivier was completely absorbed in his ice cream, joyfully savoring the melting swirls while his feet swung playfully beneath the chair. Andrew observed him for a brief moment before shifting his attention to Lillian. "It seems you weren't going to receive anything at all." She nonchalantly shrugged, savoring a delicate bite of her ice cream. "I typically don't give it much thought. It's really nothing to worry about." Andrew's brow furrowed ever so slightly. "If it's something you enjoy, then it is." Lillian's expression shifted, revealing a moment of surprise at the unexpected words. She gazed into her cup for a moment, then slowly shook her head. "It seems I've become accustomed to prioritizing him." Andrew cast a sidelong look at Olivier, who was meticulously arranging sprinkles on his spoon, savoring each one as he consumed them individually. He acknowledged it softly. "However, it doesn't imply that you aren't worthy of having things for yourself as well." Lillian gazed at him, a mystery lingering in her expression. He noticed the uncertainty, the long history of solitude, the subtle resilience that had propelled her forward. He understood that she acted in what she believed to be the best interest, even if he could never concur with her decision to keep Olivier away from him. "Why did you really leave?" he asked after a pause, maintaining a calm tone. "The truth is what I seek." Lillian took a deep breath, her grip on the spoon growing firmer. "I've already mentioned it," she said softly. "Fear gripped me. Your attention was entirely consumed by your professional pursuits, by the growth of your enterprise, and by matters that seemed disconnected from family life. I persuaded myself that sharing this with you would make you feel obligated, yet not truly engaged. I assumed you would just throw money at the situation, yet not genuinely wish to be involved in his life." Andrew's jaw tightened, yet he willed himself to maintain his composure. "You never afforded me an opportunity." She recoiled just a bit, a flicker of remorse evident in her gaze. "I understand." He let out a breath, his fingers brushing through his hair. "Do you really believe I wouldn't have desired him?" Lillian gave a slight shake of her head. "I was unaware, Andrew. I truly had no idea. By the moment I considered sharing it with you, far too much time had slipped away. I felt a sense of apprehension about your words and actions. I hoped Olivier wouldn't be just a secondary consideration in your life. He was worthy of so much more." Andrew gazed at her, and for the first time, he truly perceived her, not merely as the woman who had departed, nor just as the individual whose decision had caused him pain, but as a mother who had acted in what she believed to be the right way, despite the fact that it may have been misguided. He cast a quick look at Olivier, who was now cheerfully humming to himself while he adorned his ice cream with a colorful array of sprinkles. He had overlooked countless milestones, his initial steps, his first utterances, all the precious moments that define a child's journey. "I can't reclaim those years," he said at last, his voice softened. "However, I have no intention of leaving at this moment." Lillian observed him intently, her brown eyes scanning his features as if in search of something tangible to grasp. Gradually, she inclined her head in agreement. "I understand." It was not about forgiveness. It fell short of all his expectations. Yet, it marked the beginning. Olivier abruptly shifted his gaze toward them, oblivious to the weight of their discussion. "Are we able to indulge in ice cream once more tomorrow?" Andrew grinned, extending his hand to touzle the boy's hair playfully. "Are you looking to establish this as a regular practice?" Olivier smiled broadly. "Perhaps." Lillian chuckled gently, her head shaking in amusement. "Not every day, my dear." Olivier sulked for a moment before shifting his gaze to Andrew. "But you'll return, won't you?" Andrew acted without a moment's pause. "Absolutely, my friend. I will remain present." For the first time, he realized he truly meant it. A week had gone by since that night at the ice cream shop, and a change was in the air. Andrew demonstrated unwavering dedication, appearing daily and investing time with Olivier, affirming that he was genuinely present in their lives. Lillian remained vigilant, yet there were fleeting instances, subtle ones, where he could perceive the facade beginning to falter. Instances when her gaze shifted from doubt to a gentler warmth, hinting at a budding sense of trust. This evening, he found himself on Lillian's couch, observing as Olivier meticulously organized his toys into tidy rows across the floor. The young lad was eager to share his collection of action figures with Andrew, passionately detailing which ones represented heroes and which ones were the villains. Andrew tuned in, truly engaged, allowing Olivier to elaborate on fantastical skirmishes and covert operations. Lillian glided through the kitchen, her movements soft and deliberate as she prepared the tea. For the first time, she had lowered her defenses enough to allow him to remain this long. Typically, she crafted a reason to conclude their gatherings prematurely, consistently maintaining a sense of order. Yet this evening, she had not hurried him away. That seemed like a step forward. Olivier abruptly pivoted, his head tilting in a gesture of curiosity. "Do you own a home?" Andrew gave a slight nod. "Absolutely, I do." "Is it large?" Andrew wore a sly grin. "Somewhat." Olivier's brow knitted in contemplation. "Does it feel isolating?" The inquiry took Andrew by surprise. He couldn't quite pinpoint the reason, yet it happened. He had never thought of his home as desolate before. It exuded elegance, embraced contemporary aesthetics, and showcased impeccable craftsmanship. It served its purpose well, operating with precision. Yet, warmth had always eluded it. At times, he confessed. Olivier nodded, as though it all aligned seamlessly in his mind. "Consider acquiring a fish." Andrew arched an eyebrow. "A fish?" "Indeed," Olivier remarked with a serious tone. "Silently present, they offer a comforting presence." Lillian's soft laughter drifted in from the kitchen. "He has an intense fascination with fish." Olivier faced her, his arms crossed defiantly. "Because they are impressive." Andrew let out a soft laugh. "Very well, you've swayed my opinion. Perhaps I shall acquire one." Olivier smiled broadly. "May I assist in choosing it?" Andrew gave a slight nod. "Absolutely." The boy wore a satisfied expression, as though he had just made the most significant choice imaginable. He returned to his toys, satisfied, while Andrew observed him, still in disbelief over how much he had overlooked. Lillian approached him, offering a steaming mug of tea. "I can hardly wrap my head around the idea of you thinking about bringing a pet into your life." Andrew wore a sly grin. Changes are inevitable. She settled into her seat opposite him, releasing a gentle breath. Indeed. Indeed, they do. In that fleeting moment, silence enveloped them both. The weight of unspoken memories hung in the air, a palpable presence that neither could ignore. Unspoken words lingered between them, and scars remained unhealed. Yet there was an essence to this moment that seemed distinct. Lillian placed her mug on the table, her gaze fixed on him with intense scrutiny. It seems like you have a strong desire for this, don't you? Andrew locked eyes with her, his voice steady and unwavering. Above all else. She observed him intently, looking for any signs of weakness or uncertainty, yet she found none. Gradually, she inclined her head in agreement. Very well, she replied gently. Andrew was uncertain about the exact meaning, yet he was certain of one thing. It surpassed anything she had offered him in the past. And that sufficed. At this moment, Andrew was unaware of the extent to which his life had transformed until a serene evening unfolded, revealing him seated on the floor of Lillian's living room, assisting Olivier in constructing a racetrack for his toy cars. Only a few weeks prior, his days were consumed by an unrelenting schedule of meetings, deadlines, and the perpetual pursuit of achievement. Yet, here he found himself, fully engaged in the delightful task of arranging miniature ramps and loops, as Olivier animatedly detailed the rules of his fantastical race. "All right, this one is the quickest," Olivier remarked, lifting a red car. "However, this particular one, the blue one he chose, excels at jumping." Andrew acknowledged with a solemn nod. "That's a compelling approach. Are we in a competition?" Olivier smiled broadly. "Indeed. However, it's essential to choose a quality vehicle. Definitely not a sluggish one." Andrew feigned deep contemplation before selecting a stylish black car. "What do you think of this one?" Olivier scrutinized it carefully, then nodded in satisfaction. "That's quite clever. However, mine is still destined to triumph." Andrew wore a sly grin. "We'll find out soon enough." Lillian lounged on the couch, observing them with an expression that left Andrew puzzled. It had transformed beyond mere hesitation, not quite that anymore. It was a gentler feeling, one that leaned more towards acceptance. She had been allowing him to enter her world, piece by piece, yet he sensed her lingering caution. He grasped the concept. Trust takes time to develop, and he had lost out on years of their shared experiences. He couldn't simply assume she would let that go. As they prepared their vehicles, Olivier abruptly faced Andrew, posing a question that caused him to hesitate. "Will you be here tomorrow?" Andrew acted without a moment's pause. "Absolutely, my friend. I shall." Olivier smiled, pleased with the response, and returned to aligning his car at the starting line. Andrew cast a fleeting look at Lillian. She continued to observe him, and this time, when their gazes locked, she held her ground. Later that night, once Olivier had drifted off to sleep, Andrew assisted Lillian in tidying up the living room. The silence enveloped the space, a serene and cozy stillness that seemed to belong there. Lillian at last found her voice. "He's starting to form a bond with you." Andrew placed the toy car aside, pivoting to meet her gaze completely. "I desire for him to. I wish to support him in any way I can." She let out a breath, her fingers gliding through her hair. "It continues to frighten me." He gave a slight nod. "I understand. But I have no intention of leaving, Lillian." She gazed at him for an extended moment before letting out a sigh. "I'm beginning to embrace that notion." Andrew sensed a release deep within his chest. It was not a commitment. It fell short of all his desires. Yet, it held significance. As he departed that evening, he was certain of one thing. This transcended mere compensation for time that had slipped away. This was about constructing a future, one he would never abandon again. The conclusion of this narrative transcends mere resolution. it stands as a tribute to personal evolution, atonement, and the strength found in new beginnings. Andrew begins as a man driven by ambition, convinced that his life is fulfilled until he uncovers a reality he never realized was there. The gradual nature of his transformation adds depth and significance to the journey. He doesn't merely hold the title of father, he cultivates it, one small moment at a time. Lillian's journey is equally compelling. She transcends the role of mere obstacle or love interest, she embodies a mother who acted from a place of fear and the instinct for self-preservation. Her uncertainty stems not from a desire to punish Andrew, but from a need to safeguard her son. Observing her gradually lower her defenses, not merely for Olivier but for herself, enriches the narrative. She discovers that she no longer needs to bear the weight by herself, that placing her trust in Andrew doesn't equate to relinquishing control, but rather to embracing a partnership. At the core of everything lies Olivier, the pure spirit who unites them all. The trust he holds, the curiosity that drives him, and his pure belief in love illuminate the narrative beautifully. He doesn't require elaborate displays, what he seeks is simply presence, reliability, and the subtle comfort of knowing that Andrew will remain steadfast. The instant he inquires, "Will you return tomorrow?" and Andrew responds without a moment's pause carries more weight than any grand proclamation. This conclusion isn't focused on flawlessness. It doesn't tie everything together perfectly because reality isn't so straightforward. It's a journey of renewal, a process of rebuilding trust, and an understanding that the essence of family is shaped not by history but by the decisions we embrace as we look ahead. And what's truly enchanting about it? Andrew is not contemplating the future of his career, his financial status, or the mark he will leave behind. He contemplates Olivier. Concerning presence. And that, above all, demonstrates the extent of his transformation.